Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is August 26th, and right now we're taking a look at the mid-level water vapor loop. If you look closely here, you can see upper level low moving through southern British Columbia tonight. This will bring some precipitation chances to the central Puget Sound and the west slopes of the Cascades. You can see our upper level low that's been around the area for the last 3 days, bringing plenty of lightning strikes with it, finally kicking out through Montana there. If you look out over here, northwest of Hawaii, look at this cutoff low. This energy is eventually going to drift west and then eventually get caught up into the westerlies and may revisit the Pacific Northwest here on into the extended. We'll take a look at that. You can see Hawaii down here. Now, taking a look here, visible satellite imagery, you can see these clouds banked up against the Cascades here and Washington, Oregon coast. But if you get to the higher terrains of like the Olympic Mountains, Cascades, you can see Mount Rainier, no clouds to speak of. You can get out of these low clouds. Eastern Washington, Oregon, BC, nice and sunny. And this isn't really going to break up too much during the afternoon. May get a few sun breaks across the region, but then this upper level low is going to swing through and bring some Puget Sound convergence zone activity across the central sound here as we go on in through tonight. Now, taking a look here, this is for yesterday morning, but you can see I'm backing up as we go here. And now as we go into Friday afternoon, maybe a few sun breaks, then you can see that convergence zone activity as we go through tonight. Strong onshore flow continuing. Now, taking a look here, this is for SeaTac, 89, 2 degrees off the record high of 2016, 91 degrees. And you can see the Weather Forecast Office, Seattle, 89 degrees, exact same as SeaTac, right on the shores of Lake Washington there. Did tie that all-time record high set back in 1916. Oh, there was Olympia. Olympia hit 89 yesterday. We'll just go ahead and skip by that, though. Did not get their record high. Now, looking at the HRRR here, you can see that lightning activity has moved off to the east. We shouldn't have any more lightning strikes over the Cascades today. Maybe a thunderstorm over northeast Washington, Idaho Panhandle, eastern BC as we go here. That upper level low finally getting out of our area. Now, looking here, HRRR 3KM, this is the 18Z run. That's about 11 o'clock here. You can see this activity across the central Puget Sound here, bringing some precipitation. Models have been back and forth a little bit, just how much Seattle's going to get. Looks like maybe some favorite areas just north of Seattle, Snohomish, King County line, pretty favored area sometimes for the convergence zone activity there. West slopes of the Cascades getting some decent amounts, but fairly localized there. Now, looking at the HRRR 3KM, this is 925 millibar winds, 2,500 feet above the surface, or actually above sea level, I should say. And you can see these winds moving in through the Strait of Juan de Fuca, down the Strait of Georgia, Chehalis Gap, and they're meeting the central Puget Sound there as we go into Friday night here and Saturday morning. That's what's going to bring the convergence zone activity. But as we'll look at here closely, these systems aren't that strong yet. There's not a lot of cold air associated with this, so it's we're not talking about a lot of precipitation here or thunderstorms in the convergence zone. Not yet, anyway. Now, looking here at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet, some of the models had this system moving a little bit further south the past few days, but it looks like it's settled on moving just north of us here. And that would relax just how much precipitation the Seattle area would see coming up here. Now, taking a look here, this is 700 millibars, 10,000 feet. And you can see we're at 10,000 feet here, and we're still above freezing here at Seattle. You can see the freezing line marked by the wider area of cold air. And it's just not that cold. This upper level low is just not that cold at this time of year. So the convergence zone is not going to be a raging, strong convergence zone that we sometimes get in the spring or later on in the fall and winter. Now, taking a look here, you can see our typhoon has entered the westerlies up here. Here it goes. It's moving over the top of this ridge out here right now. There's that upper level low. Here's Japan. So just kind of showing you the progression of that getting caught up into the westerlies. It's extra tropical now. It's just subtropical moisture kind of entering the jet stream there. Now, taking a look here, this is the Pacific Ocean. Here's Hawaii. There's Alaska, Washington, Oregon. You can see that upper level low we talked about over on the mid-level water vapor loop. You can kind of see this thing is just totally cut off. You see this cold air kind of modifying a bit. You'll notice how far it travels west, slows down, and finally the jet stream says, okay, you can come back and be a part of the jet stream again. Brings that moisture across Pacific, and some of the models are showing a fairly strong system moving somewhere into the west coast here from southeast Alaska down towards Vancouver Island. And you can kind of see this colder air aloft that's moved out over the Gulf of Alaska here. So we'll show you some of this potential here coming up here in a moment. Now, this is looking at the same geographic region of that map. You can see Hawaii here. There's an upper level low. And moving across the area here, And you can see the troughing of the Gulf of Alaska pretty strong here, as by this time we'll be bringing some of the remnants of that typhoon off the coast of Japan here back up into southeast Alaska. While we start to warm up again next week across Pacific Northwest, you can see storm track well to the north. Then as we go on in through early September, you can see some of this activity getting closer to the Pacific Northwest, and even kind of an atmospheric river type feature here through early September impacting the Pacific Northwest. And we're quite a ways out from this as of now, so we'll just continue to watch it. It's been waffling back and forth a bit on just its impact location, but we're starting to get some agreement here on this trough bringing this system towards the Pacific Northwest. This is another view of the same map. You can see Pacific Ocean, Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon here. And I'll just go ahead and put this into motion. And as we see here, this is the Gulf of Alaska trough. We get our ridging, our warm days next week. So you can see the storm track north of the area here. And then we start to bring some precipitation back into the Pacific Northwest and through early September, maybe even some decent amounts, especially Vancouver Island and western BC there. We'll see how much that impacts western Washington and down towards Oregon in future runs here coming up. And you're probably going to be hearing some chatter about the models showing a hurricane out here in the Atlantic Ocean here too. Maybe we'll talk about that once it becomes more apparent. Now checking things out here, 18,000 feet, 500 millibars. There's our upper level low. It's going to spawn that convergence zone through the Puget Sound this evening. And then we build the ridging here, and we're going to warm up pretty good next week. We'll take a look at those temperatures here in a moment. Look at that troughing over the Gulf of Alaska. Finally starts to swing through and brings a system on in through early September. Then maybe some ridging again on in through the extended. So kind of a wild back and forth show here on the models. And then you can see this tropical system entering the Gulf of Mexico here through the extended forecast as well, but on the GFS. But again, we're not going to get too caught up in any of that just yet. Maybe we'll look at it when things get much closer. Taking a look here, European ensemble mean 18,000 feet. This is the average of all 50 European ensembles. There's that upper level low swinging through. Good agreement here really on the ridging building up there early mid next week, warming up quite nicely here across the Pacific Northwest before we start to bring some of this trough influence here on the Pacific Northwest, and then maybe even some type of atmospheric river system moving into western BC here through early September. Now here we go, GFS ensemble mean. There's 30 members in this. This is all averaged out. Good agreement with that. Short term, upper level low moves through. Ridging builds, trough Gulf of Alaska, very strong. And then we start to bring that activity closer to the Pacific Northwest as well in the GFS. So we'll just continue to watch that, and then maybe some ridging on through the extended forecast according to the GFS. And as you saw, the European actually hinted at some of that as well. Now, looking at Portland coming up here, you can see this, the strong onshore flow keeping us pretty chilly here across the Portland area. And then the warm up starts Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before those systems potentially impact us in the future here for Portland. Here's Seattle, nice onshore flow. Look at this, temperatures down into the mid and lower 70s here through Sunday before we start to warm back up again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, potentially back up into the upper 80s here midweek. And this might be the last gasp here for some significant heat through the Seattle area here, but we've been known to get 90-degree days in September before, so I'm not going to go there just yet. But this is starting to get towards the end of our summertime here. Now you can see these systems moving through after the heat wave here too, bringing the temperatures back down. This is Seattle, Tacoma, kind of showing the good agreement here as we go up until later into actually midweek here coming up when the heat comes. You can see some of these days up into the upper 80s here, at least on the 06Z ensemble run here. So a couple of warm days coming up next week for SeaTac. And you can see yesterday afternoon, the previous day afternoon anyway, it showed this precipitation amounts quite high for SeaTac. You can see it's kind of been on the downgrade here as that upper level low looks like it's staying a little bit further north. And you can see the system it had moving through towards early September, the 2nd and 3rd, kind of dropped that off completely. Now it's bringing it back, but just pushing it back a little bit here on towards September 4th. And this is looking at 24-hour precipitation here. I wanted to show the extended here, and we're kind of looking at this system. And we'll be dealing with our warm weather here, and you can see the storm track plainly well north of the Queen Charlotte's here up and towards southeast Alaska. And as we go on into early September, though, you can see this bullseye pointed at the Vancouver Island area here, the Olympic Mountains, western BC. And There could be some impact down into western Washington, potentially the Oregon coast as well. So we'll continue to watch that in the extended. It's becoming that time of year we can start get these wet systems back in here towards the Pacific Northwest. Now looking at Pendleton, Oregon, another fairly warm day today, but the onshore flow is going to help cool things down across the weekend before they warm back up again and potentially flirt with 100 degrees through mid next week here. This is Pendleton, Oregon. And then maybe the systems start to cool things down again here as we go through the following week. This is Tri-Cities. Look at this. Well up into the hundreds is possible here for next week, folks. So summer isn't over just yet, everybody. Now, this is looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. You can see whether, the heat is showing more across the Intermountain West here in California versus the Pacific Northwest, backing off the odds here a little bit as we go through mid-September. Some of these systems could be impacting the region by then. And look at this, even some above normal precipitation signals we go through. This is valid September 3rd to 9th here. This was released this morning. So, yeah, it's that time of year. The storm track is going to start pointing a little bit further south, and we get potential for some of these systems rolling through the area. And we're probably going to get some precipitation across the central Puget Sound. Again, favored Seattle north and the west slopes of the Cascades this later on tonight and through Saturday morning here as upper level low is finally out of our region here. We brought quite a bit of lightning strikes across the region. Doesn't look like it started a lot of forest fires. Hopefully that's the case. Sometimes those things take a day or two to get fired up here. And especially since we're dealing with the onshore strong winds here, hopefully none of those fires are smoldering, waiting to be ignited by those winds. So anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying these forecasts. Summer isn't over yet. We're going to warm up again next week, but then the potential looks like through the extended for some systems to start to impact Vancouver Island, BC, and down towards western Washington. We'll continue to watch that. So anyway, we'll do this again in tomorrow's briefing, and I'll talk to you guys later.